American engineers looked at this machine after the war and went completely silent. They had nothing like it. The BMW R75 wasn't just a motorcycle. It had sidecar wheel drive, a locking differential, and a reverse gear. These were features that Harley-Davidson never even attempted. When the military tore one apart, it confirmed what the North African desert had already proven. America was losing an engineering race it didn't even know it was in. The Wehrmacht's order in 1940 was blunt: build a motorcycle sidecar rig that could drag a field gun through mud, sand, and snow, then keep going. In Munich, Chief Engineer Dr. Wilhelm Riedel and drivetrain specialist Fritz Bormann took the challenge personally. They were not building a courier bike. They were building a weapon. By the fall of 1939, the first R75 prototypes rolled out of BMW's workshop. These machines were nothing like the patched-together motorcycles of earlier campaigns. The R75's heart was 746 cubic centimeters, air-cooled, horizontally opposed twin-engine, producing 26 horsepower at 4,000 revolutions per minute. But it was the drive system that made jaws drop. A dual-shaft layout sent power not just to the rear wheel, but also to the sidecar wheel through a single-plate locking differential. With a flick of a lever, both driven wheels locked together, forcing equal torque to claw through sand or climb a muddy bank. The gearbox was equally ruthless: 4 forward speeds, plus a dedicated reverse gear. Most motorcycles in 1941 could not even dream of going backwards under their own power. The R75 could back out of an ambush, haul a machine gun trailer through a shell crater, then shift straight into high gear and disappear. Payload: 2 men, a machine gun, ammunition, and up to 1,000 kilograms in tow. The Wehrmacht's universal motorcycle could pull an artillery piece across the Sahara, then keep pace with armored columns. Every detail was engineered for war. Ground clearance stood at 260 millimeters, enough to keep the sidecar wheel biting into soft ground. The chassis was overbuilt, the weight distribution tuned for traction, and the final drive ratios refined after months of brutal field testing. Even the oil cooler was field-adapted for desert heat. Failures were studied, then eliminated. The average R75 lasted 1,200 kilometers between breakdowns, far longer than any Allied rival. This was not a machine designed to impress, it was designed to dominate. The men who built it did not care about comfort or style or what came after. They cared about one thing: building a battlefield tool that would never quit. The R75 set a new standard for what a military motorcycle could be, a standard that American engineers would only grasp years later, when it was too late. Detroit's answer to the Wehrmacht's mechanical monster was the Harley-Davidson WLA. On paper, it looked like a war machine, a 45 cubic inch V twin engine, 30 horsepower, and a reputation for reliability that stretched from the assembly line to the front. Harley's wartime factories ran day and night, stamping out nearly 90,000 WLA motorcycles, more than any other military motorcycle in history. The message from management was clear: build simple, build fast, build enough to flood the battlefield. But speed and scale came at a price. The WLA's chain drive was cheap and easy to repair, but exposed and vulnerable in sand and mud. Its low compression engine could run on the worst gasoline the Army could find, but that same low compression meant sluggish power when riders needed punch to escape a dune or climb a muddy ridge. The design was stubbornly conventional: single rear wheel drive, no locking differential, no reverse gear, and no real answer for the sidecar's dead weight when the terrain turned hostile. The WLA was a courier's mule, not a cavalry horse. In the North African desert, these compromises turned into liabilities. Reports from the Tunisian front told of bikes bogged down in soft sand, rear wheels spinning uselessly, while the sidecar dragged like an anchor. Mechanics logged a steady stream of clutch failures, snapped chains, and worn bearings, casualties of a machine forced to do a job it was never truly built for. Soldiers gave it a name that stuck: the pig. It did not take long for the insult to reach the engineers back home. American pragmatism had built a motorcycle that could be drop from a crate and fixed with a wrench, but it could not outrun German precision. The WLA's strength, its simplicity, became its weakness on the battlefield. Every stuck bike, every lost patrol, every humiliating moment when a Harley had to be dragged out of the sand by a Jeep was a silent rebuke to the men who designed it. The war for engineering supremacy was not won by volume, but by the ruthless logic of what worked when everything else failed. May 1942, the desert outside Gazala became a proving ground, not just for armies, but for the machines beneath them. The 1st Armored Division's after-action reports read like a catalog of mechanical defeat. Harley-Davidson WLA motorcycles, meant for dispatches and fast reconnaissance, littered the sand in broken lines, clutch plates fused, chains snapped, rear wheels half-buried and spinning uselessly. Mechanics spent more hours digging and wrenching than riding. The enemy's solution was already tearing across the dunes. Captured BMW R75 motorcycles, seized after a German patrol was overrun, were pressed into American service out of desperation. These were not trophies, they were lifelines. In one night patrol across the Tobaga Gap, 2 R75 motorcycles carried men and gear where every WLA had failed, returning under their own power while the Harleys waited for rescue. Lieutenant Colonel Henry Hammond, the Ordnance Corps' most stubborn field evaluator, sent his alarm straight up the chain. The BMW R75, with its 2-wheel drive and powered sidecar, he reported, is superior in every off-road scenario. In sand track trials, the R75 covered 25 kilometers in 45 minutes at a steady 33 kilometers per hour. The WLA managed only 20 kilometers with constant chain slippage. Hammond's file AR64544 became required reading in Detroit and a source of private shame. The American design, he wrote, was costing lives and missions. The technical gap was not just a matter of pride, it was a matter of survival. Captured German bikes were stripped and studied in the field, their locking differentials and reverse gears, drawing grudging respect from men who had spent days pushing their own machines out of the sand. The verdict from Gazala was unambiguous. American engineering had been outclassed where it mattered most, in the fight for mobility, in the heat of battle, under the weight of real consequences. The humiliation was not abstract. It was written in the diaries of mechanics, in the field complaints of men like Hammond, and in the hard numbers of after-action reports. The engineers who built the R75 lost the war, but they won the argument. And Detroit never forgot it. The shadow of that defeat still lingers every time an American brand faces a foreign rival, and wonders if, once again, the best machine might not wear a U.S. badge. The humiliation was not just whispered in the field, it was stamped, cataloged, and filed at Aberdeen Proving Ground in the summer of 1945. Engineers in white coveralls circled the captured BMW R75, stripped it to the frame, and measured every gear, shaft, and bearing. Their verdict did not mince words. It called the most sophisticated 2-wheel military vehicle of the war. The Aberdeen report spelled out the numbers: 746 cubic centimeters, dual shaft drive, locking differential, reverse gear, 78 Newton meters of torque at barely 2,200 revolutions per minute. The R75 could drag a field gun through mud that swallowed Jeeps and leave American machines spinning in its wake. The official recommendation was simple. To match the German design, the U.S. would need to build an entirely new drivetrain from scratch. Detroit's humiliation was complete, but the real reckoning played out in Harley-Davidson's boardroom. Internal memoranda from 1944 laid bare the corporate calculus. Chief engineer Bill Earle's team built a prototype with shaft drive and a differential, a nod to the German method. Test results showed an immediate torque boost and better traction in sand, but the costs were staggering. Tooling would take 18 months, and the war would be over by then. The board's decision was cold and final. They canceled the project, kept building the WLA, and hoped no one asked about the enemy's machine. The shaft drive Harley died before it left the drawing board. Meanwhile, the numbers from Germany haunted every discussion. More than 16,000 R75s produced before Allied bombs stopped the line. Yet it was the American engineers who had to look the facts in the face. The Aberdeen teardown was not just a technical exercise, it was a confession. The United States had been out-engineered where it mattered most. The men who built the R75 lost the war, but they won the argument, and Detroit never forgot it. Every time American brands face a foreign rival, the memory lingers. What if the best machine still wears someone else's badge? This was not just a better motorcycle. It was a cold lesson in technical defeat. On the battlefield, American shortcomings cost lives. The engineers who built the R75 lost the war, but they won the argument, and Detroit never forgot it. The rivalry is not over. It just changes form.